All right, y'all. So y'all know that my channel focuses on Christian apologetics, which is why I do a lot of videos talking about it, trying to give y'all resources and things that can help you understand the faith and also to defend the faith to other people who may not believe the same way that you do, whether they're atheists, Hebrew Israelite, any of those things. So anyway, TikTok is a different world, okay? YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, I know they're all social media, but they're totally different. So I was on TikTok perusing, minding my own business the other day, and I ran across this atheist page, and he was having a live stream, and the whole live stream was titled, Christians, come prove to me that Christianity was true. And I was like, I don't feel prepared for this at all. Like, I know in my videos, it probably seems like, oh man, you really got it together. It takes a lot of preparation just to, read people's thoughts and make sure I'm presenting this information accurately, because I don't want to be in fault and I don't want to be in error. I want to help you guys. But it's hard to remember every single thing that you've read, even if, it's like way in the back of your mind, but sometimes it's just kind of hard to think about these things when you're in conversation. So anyway, I said all that to say, I was like, I'm going to jump on here and see if I can represent the best I can. I'm probably going to fail miserably because I'm not prepared. And this guy clearly is like, he's ready to go. Okay. And I was like, I just kind of want to see what type of arguments he has. Let me see how much he knows or whatever. And so I get on this call and I'm nervous. This is the second time I've done something like this on TikTok. The first time it actually went well because I could tell that the guy, either he didn't really know a whole bunch about apologetics. He didn't know enough about it. So that it was easier for me to get through that conversation. This one was tough. There were a lot more people watching, and I could tell that this guy was well read, and it seems as though he has a background in Christianity. So basically every argument I had, he's just knocking them down. He's just like trying to swat them away. Now, at the heart of these things, it's like, I know he's wrong. It's just kind of hard for me to pick out exactly what's wrong. And of course, he's saying so many things that are wrong. It's also hard to just pinpoint one and focus on it. But it's the heat of the argument. And it was getting a little spicy. Hundreds of people sat there and listened to us talk, I think for about an hour. But I said all that to say, one of the things that he brought up was a theory about the resurrection. But let me back up, because he said, why do you believe that Christianity is true? And my response, I said two things. And I got to give credit where it's due, because I'm going to steal from Frank Turek. He's always so good at this when he's presenting the case for Christianity. He says, if two things are true, then Christianity is true. The first one, if God exists. The second one, if Jesus rose from the dead. If the resurrection took place, then by default, Christianity is true. All right. So this is basically what I told the guy on TikTok. And he was like, well, which argument you want to use? I said, well, I guess we can start with the historical evidence for the resurrection. So we went there, and then I was saying, well, scholars basically agree, both Christian and non-Christian, that the tomb is empty. Most of them agree to that. And he's like, that's not true. Which scholars believe that? And so I didn't have any receipts at the moment, because again, this is like a spur of the moment type of conversation. So I said, well, how do you account for the empty tomb? Because I could tell that he wasn't saying that Jesus doesn't exist like some people try to do. Jesus wasn't real. Like, yo, you can say a lot of things about Christianity, but once you say that Jesus never existed, you have walked away from scholarship and like actual data. You don't have an appreciation for actual true history. So he didn't go there. He was like, well, there's plenty of reasons why the tomb could have been empty and why people believe that they saw Jesus, because that's why I was like, you have the disciples who are giving their lives because of what they're saying they saw as eyewitnesses, that Jesus was crucified, that he died, he was buried, and then that they saw him risen from the dead. Why did so many people, why did they give up their lives? Why were so many willing? Some of them didn't die, but why were so many of them willing to die if it never happened? And he said, well, I believe that someone who was an imposter pretended to be Jesus. And I was like, what? I've heard theories like this before, but this one's just ridiculous. I said all that to say, so it caused me to do my homework. So I'm like, what do other Christian apologists, how do they refute this when someone brings this up? So I'm going to share an article that I found by J. Warner Wallace. He wrote Cold Case Christianity. He wrote Person of Interest. I actually interviewed him on my channel before too. It was about Person of Interest. So make sure you go back and check out that interview too. But I just wanted to read an article that he wrote about this imposter theory, and then I'm gonna get out your way. The name of this article is Investigating Easter: Were the Disciples Fooled by an Imposter? Written by the great J. Warner Wallace, who is a cold case detective, and he was also in one of the God's Not Dead movies. I want to say it was the first one, but here's what he wrote. Okay, I'm gonna skip the first paragraph because it's just an intro, but he says, while imposter theories may account for the observations of the disciples, they require an additional set of conspirators other than the apostles, who were later fooled to accomplish the task of sealing the body. And so then he says this: there are many concerns with such a theory. The impersonator would have to be familiar enough with Jesus's mannerisms and statement to convince the disciples. The disciples knew the topic of the con better than anyone who might con them. All right, number 2, he says many of the disciples were skeptical and displayed none of the necessary naivete that will be required for the con artist to succeed. Thomas, for example, was openly skeptical from the beginning. I think that's a great point. Like, these weren't people who were just like, I'll just believe anybody, just anything they say. Is like, no, these people really, some of them, like Thomas, struggled with believing Jesus. All right, number 3, who would seek to start a world religious movement if not one of the hopeful disciples? This theory requires someone to be motivated to impersonate Jesus other than the disciples themselves. Number 4, this explanation also fails to account for the empty tomb or missing body of Jesus. So it's like, okay, well, if someone impersonated him, then why is the tomb empty? It still doesn't correlate. Number 5, the impersonator would need to possess miraculous powers. The disciples reported that the resurrected Jesus appeared miraculously, performed many miracles and convincing proofs, and ascended into heaven miraculously. It's like, so not only are you faking being the risen Jesus, but like, you got to show some evidence. So how's an imposter gonna like pull out the miracle receipts? You know what I mean? Okay, so as I examine the non-Christian naturalistic explanations for the resurrection, I found each was critically deficient. Imposter theories, for example, are especially difficult to reconcile with the post-resurrection behavior of Jesus. If an imposter posed as Jesus following the crucifixion, he wouldn't have been able to perform the post-resurrection miracles reported in the gospel. If an imposter posed as Jesus prior to the crucifixion, the post-resurrection miracles would present a conundrum. If following the crucifixion, Jesus had the power to appear miraculously, perform miracles miraculously, and ascend into heaven miraculously, why wouldn't he have been able to resurrect miraculously? The imposter theory simply isn't reasonable. The truth of the gospel accounts and the resurrection of Jesus is still the most reasonable inference from the evidence. Amen and amen. So thank you, J. Warner Wallace, for that beautiful, lovely article. And yeah, I hope that helped somebody. That was the answer that I was looking for. And I think those are pretty good arguments. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe to the channel if you like what you saw. If you want to support my channel, please consider becoming a channel member. I would really appreciate it. But yeah, like this video, give me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and I'll catch y'all on the next one.